Story 1. Basically everything physics related. Landing on the moon, nuclear power, hydrogen bombs, Large Hadron Collider. Pick one. Story 2. Humanity's greatest achievement is the effort to rise above our own limits and become more than instinct, fear, or circumstance. Story 3. Discovering electricity. Without electricity, most other achievements would not be possible. Story 4. Raising the floor means improving basic health standards. Modern medicine, for example, vaccines, raises the floor. Raising the ceiling refers to advancing human potential. Space exploration, for example, Apollo missions, raises the ceiling. Story 5. The internet and smartphones have transformed how we access information and communicate. I can go nearly anywhere that isn't extremely remote, read detailed and accurate information about almost anything, and have an instantaneous conversation with someone on the other side of the world. I can experience any culture, enjoy various forms of entertainment, and listen to any music without leaving my home or doing much at all. This would have been unimaginable for 99.99% of human history. Second in importance is the eradication of smallpox and the near eradication of poliomyelitis. These were two of the most serious illnesses humans have faced, killing millions over time. Through tremendous effort, smallpox is now confined to a few test tubes in select laboratories, and poliomyelitis is so rare that you must travel to remote parts of Pakistan to be at any risk. 200 years ago, suggesting such achievements for any disease would have been considered delusional. Story 6. Toilet. Feces are a source of many diseases, so proper waste management vastly improves overall public health. Also, there is no stench. Story 7. Never again will we use the weapons that we invented that could annihilate all life on Earth. That story is perhaps never-ending, but so far, so good. Story 8. Landing on the moon was the ultimate culmination of many fields of science to place a flag in a location so far from Earth and hostile to human life. The only achievement to surpass that now is boots on Mars. Story 9. Agriculture was the foundation that allowed us to figure everything else out. It enabled us to settle and diversify labor since we did not all have to farm. Some of us could invent writing and literacy, medicine, physics, engineering, and mathematics, all of it, because we did not have to spend all our time trying to feed ourselves. Preserving knowledge through language and writing is a close second. Story 10. The vaccine. Developed, universally distributed, often given away for free, all so that people worldwide may have life without disease. I can think of nothing more selfless than preventing diseases and saving the lives of countless others. I firmly believe that is humanity's single greatest accomplishment. Story 11. Fiction. Whole vast imaginary worlds exist, with large groups of people who understand what those worlds are like and the people who live in them. So much has been invented to facilitate sharing stories, thinking the words written by another, and seeing life in an artist's craft. The top comment on this thread at the time of writing is written language, but I think the wonderful, beautiful lies we use it for deserve a place. Story 12. The moon landing. The amount and types of technology that had to be invented to make it possible literally created our modern world. Story 13. Literacy. Everyone takes literacy for granted, and the fact that so many people can read books yet refuse to do so is tragic. Story 14. Going to the moon, landing men on it, and then safely returning them home. Nothing quite compares to it. Story 15. If I could only choose one, it would be Petra, Jordan. Hand-carved out of a single stone face. There are no do-overs, only mastery. Story 16. Sadly, it is destroying the climate of an entire planet, possibly permanently, within a few centuries. It is so vast and so monstrous that it is beyond the imagination of many, even as it happens before their eyes. Story 17. The use of tools and the rapid development of this skill. There has been nothing like us within billions of years of the Earth's existence. It is hard to compare our kind of intelligence to any other organism to the point that we do not really feel like animals anymore. Nothing that we consider human would exist without tool use. Story 18. The state of medicine has advanced significantly. All the advancements mentioned here would not be possible if mankind's average lifespan were still around 35. Story 19. Elon Musk's Space Exploration Technologies Corporation rocket catch was mind-boggling. I did not initially pay attention to it, but I saw the video recently. When you consider it even briefly, it is truly one of the most ingenious achievements humans have ever accomplished. Story 20. By far, the Internet. I truly believe that no other invention has changed society as much as this one. It has effectively rewritten the way we interact with information as a concept. Story 21. Dogs. We created a unique mutant wolf-like creature that genuinely wants to be your friend and cares about how you are doing. Story 22. You didn't say our most morally sound achievement, but our greatest. I would say our ability to restart society over and over again and still allow a few handfuls to control everything about our lives. It is pretty crazy that we have collectively let this happen time and time again over thousands of years. Story 23. Getting out of the food chain is probably the most insane option. Imagine most of our species having to hunt for food or die screaming while being eaten by a predator. Story 24. In terms of scale and impact for its time, the Apollo program and space race rank among the greatest achievements. We left our home world for the first time to set foot on the moon and discovered much about ourselves, our planet, and the universe. It was not one small step for an American, but truly one huge leap for all mankind. That race also resulted in a photograph that some argue birthed modern environmentalism as a movement. It had a significant impact on our collective consciousness as we saw how small and fragile we are. But that is one measure. By lives saved, it could be antibiotics or vaccines. Technologically, it could be writing, the steam engine, or the internet. There is no single answer to this question, only variations depending on how you approach it. Story 25. Well, feeding the better part of 8 billion humans was certainly quite a feat, but now that we have set that record, it is time to let the population drop down to 1 billion. Story 26. Internet, and especially how data travels through the internet. In just nanoseconds, someone sitting on the other side of the world receives a message. Story 27. The objective answer has to be the advent of cooked food. The increased nutritional availability allowed for rapid brain development and evolution, opening the gateway for every future achievement of humanity. Story 28. Modern medicine. Just think of how many diseases and viruses have been eradicated that would have otherwise threatened the human race. Story 29. I think one of humanity's greatest achievements may be happening right now. Clustered, regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. The ability to understand the human genome and edit genetics has tremendous potential to cure most ailments, including cancer. That is, if we do not instead use it to make men's penises 2 feet long. Story 30. Antibiotics and water sanitation systems. You cannot govern, defend, progress, or succeed if people keep dying from minor injuries or severe illness because they drank contaminated water. Story 31. Music notation and harmony. Of all the other comments, this is the only one that has not been used for evil. While it seems simple, the codification of sound into structure has allowed for the encoding of culture and the betterment of life in all parts of the world. Story 32. Humanity did not achieve anything. Only those who dared to step up accomplished something. Most people are followers who do not contribute to society. Story 33. 3 things. Written language. Vaccinations, which eradicated smallpox. The tight shorts my wife wears to the gym. Story 34. Aqueducts, sanitation, roads, irrigation, education, medicine, wine. Story 35. Where is this situation going? Nowhere. We as a species have failed. We should be more united, but instead we buy into the corporate world and are more divided than ever. Divided and soon conquered. Story 36. Modern medicine has extended the average life expectancy by almost 250% over the last 150 years. That is incredible. Story 37. Funny, this question was right below this, which is the obvious answer. Story 38. I vaguely remember a Reddit post about a scientist being asked about humanity's biggest achievement or the trait that made it the dominant species. She said something along the lines of kindness or compassion, our ability and willingness to care for one another. She cited an archaeological find, An ancient human skeleton with a broken leg. The leg healed, but badly. She explained that this person broke their leg and lived. She went on to say that if an animal breaks its leg in the wild, it inevitably dies, but this human lived for quite a while, which meant that someone else took care of them. Someone else took the time to bring them food and care for them, keeping them alive despite not being able to walk. In today's world, it is easy to become cynical, callous, or pessimistic. But when I think about the fact that there is still kindness and goodness in humanity despite our flaws, it gives me hope. Story 39. The discovery of vaccinations. Some people cannot comprehend that life before vaccinations was quite difficult. Story 40. I would say it is probably the ability to connect with others across vast distances and cultures. This connection allows us to share knowledge, empathy, and love. Story 41. Microlith blades. Banging rocks together seems simple, and we might think apes do it. However, doing so with the right materials and methods produces very small blades that hold their edge well. Many things we take for granted, such as making clothes and performing surgery, which truly distinguish humans from other intelligent animals on this planet, depend on a supply of very small, very sharp blades. Story 42. Agriculture. Without agriculture, we would not be able to sustain the populations we have had, which in turn would not have produced the great minds who made these massive achievements possible. Story 43. Honestly, it is going to be the smartphone because it is so easy to connect with people and have the internet available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Story 44. Being able to kill off many of the planet's species, showing no signs of stopping or caring. Story 45. Practical injury repair or medical care is not always available. An animal gets a small leg injury. Without treatment, the animal dies. Humans tend to live longer. There is evidence of splints being used on injured legs from a long time ago. Story 46. Vaccines. Just 100 to 200 years ago, many people, especially babies and young children, died from diseases we rarely consider today. Illnesses like smallpox, measles, or polio were part of everyday life, and child mortality could reach 30 or even 40%. Smallpox alone killed hundreds of millions before it was eradicated in 1980 thanks to vaccines. Today, vaccines save around 4 to 5 million lives every year, and that number could be even higher if everyone had access to them. One simple idea, millions of lives saved. Story 47. The space program, the steam engine, vaccines, antibiotics, the scientific method, the printing press, the internet. Story 48. People have mentioned science already, but I will be more specific. The scientific understanding of medicine. Who knows how many lives have been saved due to the understanding of the true nature of bacteria, viruses, infections, and the workings of the human body. Story 49. Just surviving. On the whole, we are foolish and accident-prone. We kill each other incessantly. When we are not doing that, we are harming ourselves with unhealthy food and drink. We are even damaging the planet we live on. How are we still here? Story 50. Passing our deoxyribonucleic acid on to the next generation. That is all we are here for and all that matters. If we stop doing that, there will be instant regret. Story 51. Drilling into the asteroid that was headed for Earth, splitting it in half and saving the planet. Story 52. The rubber band has utility, and you can play with it endlessly or make it into giant sculptures of rubber band balls. Story 53. Artificial intelligence, an artificial brain that surpasses 1 million average people combined. It is new, it is real, it works, and it is doing wonders. Story 54. Mapping our own genes and exploring the first few 100 million years of the universe with the James Webb Space Telescope. Story 55. There are many great answers to this question. Domesticating dogs is also important. It made hunting easier and alerted us to danger much faster. This freed up a lot of time to use our minds to develop new things. Story 56. We have stopped evolution. Many genes that would have disappeared if natural selection were still active. Story 57. While technically before the Homo sapiens era, humanity's greatest achievement was becoming the true apex predators for the first time in hominids' history. The moment early humans started using tools and collaborating to hunt efficiently, They changed their position on the food chain permanently. That shift brought us something no other species had: spare energy and spare time. We were too successful at survival for it to become our only focus. We could afford to wonder, experiment, and plan. That's where culture, language, farming, math, and eventually the scientific method started to develop. We didn't build rockets out of nothing. I like to think we did it because some Homo erectus figured out how to throw a rock better and no longer had to run from lions. Story 58. Lenses and optics. Without them, we would still believe that bad humors cause disease, and we would realize that we are just a small speck in the vast universe. Story 59. Fire. From the discovery of fire, everything started, and we could not do anything without it. We are the only species on Earth to understand and use fire. Honorable mentions include electricity, any image we have created of particles so far, and images of black holes. Also, our ability to create our own particles, such as antimatter, the use of nuclear energy, achieving temperatures lower than the vacuum of space, and sending a man-made object outside our solar system. But at the end of the day, none of that would have been possible without discovering fire first. Story 60. The concept of telephones still amazes me. The fact that we can communicate with someone on the other side of the world or just a different location is incredible. Achieving that is a remarkable step in convenience. Imagine if we still had to write letters. There are people I haven't seen in ages, and thanks to texting and phones, I am still able to talk to them and keep them in my life. If it were only through letters, we probably would not talk anymore. Story 61. Putting man on the moon, or even putting man in the air and keeping him there, still fascinates me. I can fly from my home in Texas to my friend in California in less than 3 hours. People can actually leave the planet and visit other planets in spaceships. Jules Verne must be spinning in his grave like a top. Story 62. Empathy. It is easy to think technology is our crowning glory, but learning to care about people we have never met on the other side of the world, that might be the real miracle. Story 63. Complex language and the development of written language, as many have mentioned below, are probably the most fundamental achievements that separate our species from all others. Story 64. I know everyone is focused on writing, and it is amazing, but for a tangible invention, I am choosing the integrated circuit. This is also required for everyone to see this response. Story 65. It depends on how you define greatest. Each achievement builds on the previous ones and becomes gradually more impressive. The first one, which is fire, seems ridiculous, but without it we would not be where we are. If you mean greatest by hardest, the latest big achievements can be considered the greatest as they rely on the cumulative work of humanity, thousands of years of man-hours of effort. For example, going to the moon or the invention of artificial intelligence, which we are probably just seeing the beginning of, relies on many technological, organizational, and societal steps and is obviously more impressive than fire. Fire allowed us to efficiently ingest more calories and proteins, thus developing our bodies and minds. Writing allowed us to pass knowledge more efficiently than waiting for evolution to encode it as instinct in our DNA. Agriculture allowed us to scale our calorie production and population by orders of magnitude. Religion allowed us to organize ourselves and coexist as a society of millions of individuals. The scientific method allowed us to graduate from the shackles of dogmatism and increase our knowledge exponentially. The Industrial Revolution allowed us to increase efficiency in producing goods by orders of magnitude and create the prosperous society the Western world benefits from and that the rest of the world envies. The Silicon Revolution allows us to increase our compute power and efficiency in intellectual tasks by orders of magnitude, with artificial intelligence being the perfect example. Story 66. Discovering psychology. This is how we learn language, science, physics, engineering, critical thinking, and emotional control. Our brains do everything for us. Like the ocean, we only know a percentage of what our brain is capable of. There is so much you can learn from a psychology degree, but there is still much to study as well. Why are humans so different and yet so alike at the same time? We know our brains are different from animals, especially because we have discovered language and emotional control. That knowledge has literally evolved the brain to make humans superior. Story 67. surviving the catastrophic events that have devastated the world since humans inherited the planet. Before that, Earth was simply a rock spinning through space for eternity. Story 68. Our ability to connect and create across cultures, turning ideas into realities that shape the future. Story 69. I believe humanity's greatest achievement has been diversity. It has been our strength to cultivate diverse spaces. Story 70. Understanding genomes and editing them. We have cracked the fundamental building blocks of life. We looked deep inside, found a code with no hints on how to solve it, and are now deciphering it little by little. We can do so much nowadays, and we have barely scratched the surface. Story 71. Average violence has decreased throughout history. The idea that human life is valuable and that every human has the right to exist is, I think, humanity's greatest achievement. I know this is not a complete reality. Violence, oppression, and similar issues obviously still exist. But the idea that these are wrong instead of being considered natural is our greatest achievement. Story 72. Hubble Deep Field Photograph, where the camera was pointed for 2 weeks at a patch of space the size of a thumbnail, very small, empty, and unassuming. The image contains approximately 10,000 points of light, and every one of them is a galaxy. I think that is more important than the pale blue dot and the day the Earth smiled. Story 73. Humanity's greatest invention is the Haber-Bosch process, which involves combining nitrogen and hydrogen gases under high pressure and temperature to create ammonia. Ammonia acts as a fertilizer for all the major crops humans rely on to survive. According to estimates, the world population would have been reduced to 4 billion in the absence of this process, and we would never have reached 8 billion people without enough food. Ammonia is used as a fertilizer and is also used in explosives. Hence, the founder of this process is credited with saving most lives in the world by preventing starvation, while also being associated with the deaths of millions of people due to its use in explosives. Story 74. Everyone says landing on the moon, but I am actually going to say having one person land a rover on that asteroid. Story 75. Writing. Through this technique, people were able to communicate with future generations and learn from the body of knowledge passed down to them from earlier generations. The most basic and currently available method of human-invented time travel is writing. Story 76. Without a doubt, it is artificial intelligence. You can talk to it like it is another human being, and you can ask it to create pictures of things. This is the most amazing thing humans have ever made. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.